This video is for atheists mainly, particularly atheists that think that atheism has to be an active stance, that you have to reject a belief. The reason I'm doing this is an argument back and forth with the Zombie Picture Show, and I was reading an article by Paul Clear. Well, I've been reading a lot of stuff, so I'm probably going to get a lot wrong because I've read a lot of books or a lot of material in a short amount of time. And I wanted to go over a few things, and this varieties of atheist experience by Paul kind of goes over what I think some of the problems are, basically. He states, Nagel puts it as follows in his Defense of Atheism, 1957, "I shall understand by atheism a critique and denial of the major claims of all varieties of theism." And automatically, I'm going to come back to that in a second. And Paul also kind of goes into different stances. He talks about if atheism was a lack of belief, how could you defend that position just by a lack of belief alone? Where's the proof if it's just a lack of belief or something like that? And I'll get back to that in a sec. First, theism, defined by dictionary.com, the belief in one God as the creator, ruler of the universe, belief in the existence of gods or gods, God or gods, opposed to atheism. As opposed to, well, they say opposed to atheism. I'm not really concerned with what we're going to define God. The main concern is the belief in that God. And that's what I'm going to focus on. The belief in one God. I'm going to just say the belief in God to summarize. The belief in the existence. I'm not even going to go into that. I'm going to just say the belief in God. I'm not going to go into all those details. I'm going to focus on belief. In Douglas Harper's etymology online, the etymology of atheism is from Greek atheos, means without God. And theism is from theos, which means God. So by that, you can get a few different definitions out of that, either without belief in the existence of God, or I was going to summarize, right? Without belief in God, or not. Some say that you can that can be a negative, no belief in God, and also if you move it around, it could be belief in no God, which would be the affirmative also. But that is important, but it's not as important. But basically, the etymology, which isn't as important, would be something around without the belief, or belief in God. I'm summarizing. Without the belief in God. First off, before I go into the rest of this, I want to state that the reason I was pointing out that belief is important. What was that other guy's name? Paul Clear, whatever. He pointed out how one stance, the stance itself, didn't have the proof, and as though how could, or why would you take this belief without the proof, or something like that. And there was other issues. There was the atheism is a critique by Nagel, a critique and a denial of the claims. Now, both of those have added something to the definition. One of them added a critique, and the denial, I can kind of get that. I can kind of get that from from the etymology. Sorry about repeating. I'm fuzzy right now. From the etymology, if you can get that denial from that, but the critique part is an addition. So basically, you critique this idea, and then you remove this idea or remove this belief from yourself. I know that's not exactly the best wording in the world. Maybe I'm a little wrong, but am I right so far? And probably not. Let me know. And how Paul was putting it, also, it's not enough proof or something in just the lack of belief, and that is also adding another factor to it. It has nothing to do with provability, the belief itself. Now, obviously, one of those might be more logically correct, but even then, belief has nothing to do with whether or not it's provable. It's belief. It's what you see as true. Now, as logical beings, obviously, or let me rephrase that. Logical beings, of course, would need proof. So it makes sense to say that and also I think Nagel, was it Nagel? Yeah, Nagel said it, but I don't have the link for that. It said somewhere about atheist philosophers, and goes into maybe I shouldn't even bring that up since I don't have the link. Yeah, I'm not going to bring it up. But he talks. He does talk about atheist philosophers, and I'm not even going to go into that. So, but it does add another element. I'm just going to talk about this one. The element is the critique. That's another element. It has the critique of the claim has nothing to do with the belief. Let's say, I'm not even going to change the definition. Basically, the atheism from the get-go, from the basic definition, I should say from the get-go, from the basic definition is, if the without or the not is put in the front, is basically the negation of theist. It's without the belief in God, or it's just not theism, basically. No belief in a God. But it has to do with belief. So it's not critique and then have no belief. It's not make sure you have proof and then have no belief. It's about belief. How you get to that belief is outside of that. And maybe skeptical atheism or some other type of atheism, if you want to add something to it, but atheism in general is about the belief, just like theism in general is just about the belief, not whether or not it's defensible. It's about believing. It's about holding it as true. So is it fair to add tack something else on there. So, and change the entire definition, the wide definition, because most people have to come to that. Now I know there's more to this, so I'm not done yet. I'm just saying that those two. Now Michael Martin, which actually most of these people I think you've already heard of. Actually, you probably read all of this. So you probably already have an argument to this, so I'm waiting for it. I guess I'll be waiting for it. Michael Martin, in the Cambridge Companion to Atheism, 2007, in the very first page, before he gets into the chapter stuff, I guess this is the introduction. I can't quite remember. Anyway, he says, from this standpoint, and this is after he... I didn't quote it. From this standpoint, an atheist is someone without a belief in God. He or she is not. He or she need not be someone who believes that God does not exist. And I think he gave that definition right after the etymology, and that's why I didn't put a note, because I just had the etymology up there. And he does point out in his notes what Edwards said in the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which I misspelled, that it's important to distinguish this negative atheism from Edwards' sense of atheism in Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So he did note Edwards, and a lot of people quote Edwards, so of course it's important to note it. So we have this now this other word that they tack on called negative atheism, which is which would basically be that definition I started, just being without. And quoting a few websites that deal with a lot of atheists. Now I know this is just, but remember, this is also usage too. Language is a little bit more complicated than just straight logic, unfortunately. So we're not always dealing with strict definition. If we're talking about just philosophy, then, well, even in just philosophy, we're still going to have to make sure that we're clear on what we're talking about if we're strictly talking about philosophy. So regardless, we're going to have to clarify ourselves. Either way, this is about strict common usage and what it should mean in common usage. The Brights, I know the Brights, say, of course, where's my quote? Okay. Of course, a great many Brights are atheists by definition, e.g., they are without belief in any gods. So they define atheist as without belief in any gods. American atheists define atheism as a lack of belief in a deity, and they add a bunch of other stuff on there that they say it implies. Daniel Dennett, Breaking the Spell, Religion as a Natural Phenomenon, 2006, by definition, one would think theists believe in God. Atheism is the negation of theism after all. So Daniel shows that atheism is the negation of theism, not theism. David Mills, Atheist Universe, The Thinking Person's Answer to Christian Fundamentalism, 2006. Essentially, an atheist is a person who rejects the concept of God. So there's the active stance. And I didn't quote everything because it was really long. He goes into the etymology. The derivative for this becomes atheist and simply means without God, just as asexual reproduction means reproduction without sex. This is an interview that he's doing. Yeah, it's an interview that he's doing with he recorded an interview in his book, and he starts off saying that atheism is a person who rejects the concept of God, and then goes into the etymology, and then states that it means, the word itself means without God, is just like asexual reproduction means reproduction without sex. Let's move on from that. Good gracious. Okay. Okay. Basically, I think some of these authors do define it as that, but in their explanations of atheism, when they're trying to explain it, they give a slightly different definition, which is what I'm going to read. And the ones that gave explicit definitions that were different, or some of these also don't give definitions at all, so you have to take from the words, were the ones I just read, and David Miles gave that as the definition when he was in the interview. Okay, Sam Harris, Letter to a Christian Nation in 2006, said on page 17, the entirety of atheism is contained in this response. Atheism is not a philosophy, and it is not, there's no and. It is not even a view of the world. It is simply an admission of the obvious. And he says it's an admission. But, well, that part's added, obviously. In fact, atheism is a term that should not even exist. No one needs to identify himself as a non-astrologer, non-alchemist. We do not have words for people that doubt Elvis is alive, or that aliens traverse galaxies, only the Middle East ranchers and their cattle. Now, yeah, he put it as the admission of the obvious. So the admission would be an active stance. But then he points out that the term shouldn't even exist. No one should identify themselves as a non-astrologer. And that's what I was trying to point out earlier when I was talking to you. Now I'm talking to, I forgot who I'm talking to. Zombie Picture Show. Obviously, I'm talking to other atheists too, if you want to chime in, especially if you disagree. But atheism is basically non-theism, and that's what he's saying. He's saying nobody needs to identify themselves as a non-astrologer, pointing out that atheism is like non-theism. And what was I going to say about that? Oh, so basically, we shouldn't have to point it out. It is a lack of a belief in God, so we shouldn't have to point it out. The problem is obviously that theists are the majority, a huge majority. So, and hopefully not in the future. So in the future, hopefully we can go back to just being normal. But he equates it with being normal, and if theism was just a little cult, then we wouldn't even identify ourselves as atheists. Everybody would just be normal. So he kind of equates it with that. So I know you probably disagrry. I'm going to continue. Arthur Diademo, Science Without Bonds, a synthesis of science, religion, mysticism. I'll put links in the underbar. Said the spread of science is often accompanied by lessening of religion, by a lessening of religious belief, if you will, by the conversion of the only religion to the only religion which science, however, indirectly promotes, de facto atheism, an atheism in practice, if not in theory. So, if it just kind of points it out. Okay, maybe I shouldn't even put that one in there. George H. Smith, Defining Atheism. Wait, that's the one I wanted to stop at. Yeah, okay. George H. Smith, in Defining Atheism, from his 1990 book, he basically goes, and this is the one I want you to read. When I was going through trying to find resources trying to read through it and make sure that I was trying not to present it incorrectly, he kind of already presents exactly what I've been trying to present. And they like to point out in Wikipedia and other places the quote by Nagel from 1957. But what I'm trying to say is that Nagel adds extra stuff to the definition. So if you're going to add extra stuff to the definition of just atheism, then you're going to have to add another word, like skeptical atheism or something. Yeah, obviously, you need to logically defend your position, but the position itself, the belief, the thing that you're holding true, doesn't have to be defensible. It doesn't have to be true. And well, that's the theism part. The lacking of it, even the rejection of it, it doesn't have to be logically rejected. It could be rejected without a logical step. It doesn't need the proof. That's an extra thing. You're going to need it when you're trying to defend yourself. What's better or what's more logical? But the belief itself, or the lack of belief, doesn't need proof itself, in and of itself, because it is just a belief, or the belief not being there. I think I said it wrong in the beginning. I think I just said belief at the beginning. But the belief or the lack of belief, in and of itself, it doesn't require that. It's just there or it's not. And that part maybe we'll have a contention on. George H. Smith, which is the one I want you to read, if you can read the whole article, it's a piece from his book, 1990 book, Atheism, Ayn Rand, and Other Heresies. I found a link of it online. Defining Atheism. According to this reasoning, one who denies God's existence is a legitimate atheist, but he subscribes to the particular species of atheism. If, however, we construe atheism as the denial of God's existence, then the person who merely lacks a theistic belief is not a real atheist, but an impostor. This is an exclusion by definition. It seems to me, this exclusion by definition, it seems to me, is ingracious, and it shows ignorance of what important atheists have argued for many years. And he does cite a lot of people as well. Now, I wouldn't have, I don't think I would have worded it the way he worded it, but he gives the idea of what I was trying to say much more eloquently than I could say it, because I'm not exactly the most eloquent of people. This thing's getting very long. But basically, lack of belief or belief doesn't require that you critique. And when you add that on, now I understand you want to make sure people that get into atheism think about it. But that's not a requirement for somebody to hold something true or not hold something true. Or just not believe. So it's I'm not sure how else to put that. It's when you're actually, just read George H. Smith. I'll put all the links underneath. I'm not going to talk anymore because I'll probably just put myself into a hole if I do, if I haven't already. So get back with me and tell me how badly I did. Ciao.